lead us, and also, a lot of times I think that a lot of people here in the community don't realize what good employees that we do have at the city. And for all the employees, I just really appreciate what they continue to do. I've just really enjoyed it. I know I'm gonna miss it.
Again, thank you, Ken, for your service. You'll be missed.
And I will second what Ken had to say. I enjoyed my time. Been stressful at times, but it's been good.
Yeah. We always work through it, that's the good thing.
Yeah. But, yeah,
So,
it's different than working for the city.
yeah, on the other side of it, for sure. Well, Lloyd, again, thank you for your time and commitment, and for helping keep and move our community forward. So, to both of you guys, thank you. So, okay, now, I think Jason has something.
We gotta go now. Yeah, we're out of here.
We got this for you guys, so thanks for all your service, hopefully something you
Thank
can
you.
hang on the wall and remember. It's been great looking at you guys, yeah, Lloyd, thank you so much for everything you did for us.
Thank you, guys. Don't forget I think you get to keep your name.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome.
Not the whole lot.
Just slide out the pizza. In case you forget who you are, you can put it on the door.
You can get Velcro and put it on your jacket. So, gentlemen, again, thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Nowhere.
Fred Sibley.
Just try to get, just try to get a hold of me tomorrow or something, because I got lots of
Well,
spreadsheets.
we're just
It's
trying to
I
understand.
totally understand. It's one of those eggs and it's egg and the chicken. We'll probably all see differently, you know what I mean?
Well, you
It's
know,
like-
Chris, Same old here. She was telling me one way that we had to pay it.
Yeah,
That's what she told me.
sure. And I think you can see it both ways probably, but I'll show you some stuff and then you'll
Well,
see it.
maybe not tomorrow, because he has an
And that's
appointment,
fine,
but
yeah,
we'll
that's
try to get
fine,
with
that's
it
fine, yeah.
Friday.
Well, thank you.
I got lots of ways to do that way you can make your own decision about it, so yeah, no problem, yeah. No problem, yeah, all right, thanks for coming, yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
No problem.
You guys can't stay away from me, you know, so put in jail. Not all county.
You're not even on our radar, so you're good for
He's pretty excited about his writing and stuff. Sure. You know, these young guys, they want to be where the action's at, so. There's no action.
You want us over there, you want us right here?
Over here. Yeah.
We're here.
Very efficient.
Yeah. Okay. After I state your name and then actually I do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas
And
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully discharge the duties of counselor, so help me God.
and faithfully to discharge the duties of counselor, so help me God.
So help me God.
Can't do that. Come on up, gentlemen. Take a seat. Yeah. Two empty seats, still warm. Freshly off the burning. Check that out.
And we'll start the chant one more year. Okay, we'll call our meeting back to order and welcome our new councilman. Guys, these guys are very genuine.
I'll get you a different name.
I did talk to Brett, we're gonna meet tomorrow, the next day, okay, I got a lot of spreadsheets, they kinda caught me off guard. I got a lot of spreadsheets, at least they can talk about making their own decisions.
Oh,
It's kind of the egg and the chicken discussions, like, okay,
It's a tough one.
it's a tough
And then
one,
there's some
so.
more.
It's the 4%. What is it?
I don't really know, I think what they're getting at is, you know, there is a rebate that goes back out, so they're just saying, hey, we have to levy extra to rebate that back out, but again, are you, if it wasn't there, you didn't, so that's kind of the discussion, and create a new tax base, so that's.
So is he thinking that
It's like a
he's
5%
paying?
filing fee to do this too, correct?
To do the,
Revitalization.
for sure, well, yeah, so, yeah, right, now you get 5%, you put back.
You're paying 5% to
So, yeah.
do it, so actually the first year you're.
Yeah, I don't understand how a shortfall of 7 million or whatever figure they were quoting would be.
Now, the figure they're quoting is what's been rebated back, but you know, remember the stuff coming in too, in the long term, what does that mean in the snowball?
And it's still a greater number than 7 million.
Well, eventually it is.
And that's been rebated out over the entire time of the program.
Yeah.
They just, they,
Entire time, so.
yeah,
And 100% doesn't go back out. You know,
Correct.
It's programmed.
Correct. And there's people that fall off the program every year also.
Yeah, and that was, that's just the
Which has nothing to do with the,
That's county versus
So,
city, yeah.
it was a good question, so I told them to talk to, because it's hard to get.
No, I appreciate the question.
Yeah,
I
the
just-
concern was that the
Now, there's an
realization caused
application.
that to go up.
Yeah.
There's an application fee also with that, you have to register that in the beginning of that.
Correct.
So it's,
So, yeah, we'll have a good discussion, and see if we can.
And it's not easy to explain.
It is not, yeah, well, it's,
It's not.
there's two schools, there's a lot of schools involved with it,
Yeah.
there's any sort of economic development there always is, so.
In the long term, it's a benefit for everybody.
Yeah.
You look at what's done for Mitchell County in the last 10, however many years it's been. Okay. Next item on the agenda, since we have a new council, we need to elect a council president. So I'll open up nominations.
Congratulations, Jennifer.
I'll be honest, I am willing to do it again
Okay.
if everyone feels I've done a good job.
Nobody feels that way.
Andrew has been nominated as council president by second.
It'll save us some money having to print a new one of these. Cost savings at work, right now.
You're locked in now. Any further discussion? Those in favor of Andrew during the council president signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Congratulations, Andrew. 4 more years. No, I guess this is 1 year.
Yeah, I think I filled in for you once. So, thank you.
If you got one coming, you don't know it. Heads up.
At the Christmas party.
Okay, okay, we'll move on to, make sure I haven't missed anything else here. Airport presentation, I've covered it up. Diane, sorry.
Always gets me.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Diane Hofer with Olson. We're an engineering firm headquartered in Lincoln, Nebraska. We're also many offices in Missouri throughout the Midwest. So we've been working on the airport master plan for a little over a year now. And let's go ahead and, so I'm just gonna update you about kind of what we talked about and what our preliminary recommendations are. So airports been there a really long time. A lot of airports didn't open until after World War II. And the city purchased it because so a grant program became available, and the only way to get grants was to public-owned airport. Although the runway didn't get paved until the 70s, and then concrete was added, and then of course the runway extension and widening, which finally got closed, and those can be long and painful projects, so lots of paperwork for the FAA. So what's going on at the airport? You think, I don't use the airport, there's nothing happening there, but there's actually quite a bit of activity. You have full-time FBO who provides the maintenance, fueling, aircraft service, which is really only about 1/3 of airports, small general aviation airports have that kind of services available, so that's really great. So Ag Spraying, a couple different companies there. Hospital air ambulance is important. Delivery of parts and supplies. You know, it just got done with harvest, if something breaks down, it's not uncommon to see some of that flown in quickly for overnight service. Some things you might be not be aware of in the upper right corner, air ambulance, that's kind of a stock photo. But in the lower right, unfortunately, that's a picture I took at Phillipsburg, but tourism includes hunters. A lot of people come in for pheasant hunting and people coming into the lake. So just really, I think, a pretty surprising amount of activity for a town of your size. So go ahead to the next slide. And that activity leads to economic impact. So this was actually done by the state of Kansas KDOT Aeronautic Aviation Office. And they looked at the direct impact being the employees at the airport and the fuel purchases and the money produced at the airport, but the indirect and the secondary impact is you know, those people go to town and they go to lunch and they tip the waitress, and the waitress goes to buy groceries, and they're kind of that roll down impact. So $2.2 million impact, I think that's a couple, maybe 3 years old. And compared to what the city is investing in the airport is probably less than 5% of that. So, so you're getting a great bang for your buck investment at the airport. You might not really see it. Overall in Kansas, Kansas is like the world capital of aviation, with Wichita and all the aircraft manufacturers in there. So it has a great impact throughout the state, and KDOT is very supportive of airports in that way. Your airport investment, surprisingly, if we went back and we were able to track the grants there on the left, $5.2 million in public investment in the last 30 years. That's $4.8 million in grants. So a lot of money you're able to get at the airport. Weren't able to find any records prior to that, for the prior 40, 50 years prior to that. But then you can also add in the buildings that are out there that have been privately in, some that the city owns. And look at the replacement value for your airport, surprisingly, probably north of $12 million. So it's an important asset to the city, something to maintain. It's in great shape with the new runway pavement and all that, and also something to protect, whether it's zoning or it's just height of objects that can sometimes be an issue around your airport, as you kind of found out already. So just wanted to remind you what a great asset you have out there and a really beautiful facility. We did the master plan. These were our goals. It's a 20-year plan. Your drawings needed updated, and really wanted to identify what sort of capital improvements and what was a realistic schedule for the airport, what was possible, and what made sense with funding wise. You're not going to go out there and have that giant runway extension grant every couple of years. So go ahead and so in order to figure out what you need, we have to kind of do a forecast of what's out there. I always say the highway and the street people have it easy because there's one kind of car and a couple kinds of trucks. I mean, we have literally thousands of different models of aircraft, all with different operational needs. So the airport historically, the based aircraft, kind of took a nosedive there in 2015 related to construction at the airport, and really with the, but saw a lot of those aircraft return and get going even higher, and then forecasting it just for slow growth over time, and really just using the national averages for the forecasted growth. A lot of what you're going to do out there, the forecast is just a big crystal ball. Beyond 5 years, it's really hard to say. So if you suddenly have an influx of 30 airplanes and you exceed your forecast, just go build a new hangar. It's pretty easily accommodated there. One graph we had shown the committee was the operations, and up until 2010 we had a nice growth going on there, and guess what? The recession, and that really hit business aviation hard, and even the recreational flyer even harder. So all of aviation kind of saw a real decline there for a few years, started to grow back up there in 15 or 16. Then your runway went under construction, so then the FAA record of your operations was really low. And so now we're seeing those have bounced back pretty quickly, and we're forecasting a really great growth after this. You have a longer runway, a wider runway. You're going to be able to get more and larger aircraft in on that runway, and you have great services there, and kind of a great attraction to come to the lake and hunting and things like that. So, and then the final forecast was we had to pick the critical aircraft looking at wingspan, approach speed, and weight of the aircraft. And surprisingly, the Air Tractor 802, which Hyman Brothers flies in a number of routes, that has almost a 60-foot wingspan and weighs about 15,000 pounds. It's bigger than a King Air. And so when we did our design standards, we had to make sure it would fit this aircraft and then everything smaller than that. So ag spraying, surprisingly, Nebraska just did a study. About 28% of Nebraska crops are sprayed, and it increases crop yield by $1 billion in Nebraska. I don't have a recent study for Kansas, but that's a really surprising number, how that airport is really benefiting the agricultural community. Makes it cheaper for them to spray. They don't have to have somebody fly in from a different county. And so that's an economic impact beyond the city there. the results were the capital improvement plan, and it's kind of, I don't know if it's hard to see, I brought a board too, but board's hard to see. But, whether, yeah,
Can I interrupt for, because we have
Sure.
a couple of new council members? So, in order to qualify for FAA funds, we have to have a master plan, correct?
correct.
And so that's the reason for updating this, we haven't done it in how many years? Several years.
Oh, 15, yeah, nobody, and actually nobody could find a copy of the last report, all we had was a drawing.
So that's why we're doing all this.
Which allowed us to get the last runway extension and those type of things, I mean, it did pay off to do that.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Sorry to keep you.
So north is to the left there, to make it fit on the drawing. And one thing you might notice is we're not showing any changes to your main runway. The extension's done, and you have the highway here, and you have 8th Street over here, and the runway is, well, it doesn't quite fit up against the highway, which is why that threshold, there's a threshold marking here that was displaced back. So the only way to lengthen the runway is to move